I thought I was smart, careful, a man who knew the game. But when you love someone for 5 years, you stop checking the rules. By the time I realized what she was doing, I'd already signed it all away. This isn't just about money. It's about losing myself, one signature at a time. My hand was shaking as I held the pen. Not from fear, mind you, from excitement. After 5 years together, I was finally making it official. Not marriage official. We'd done that paperwork dance months ago. But property official. Real commitment. The kind that says, I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Are you sure about this, darling? Charia asked, her voice soft with that accent I'd grown to love. Her fingers traced along my forearm as we sat in the stuffy government office in downtown Bangkok. The air conditioning wheezed overhead like an old man's breathing. I'm sure, I said, looking into her dark eyes. 5 years, Charia. 5 years you've been patient with me, helped me with every visa renewal, every form, every bloody bureaucratic nightmare this country could throw at me. You deserve security. I wasn't planning on telling this story tonight. But earlier this week, I opened an email from a longtime viewer of this channel. He told me he'd been following for a while, quietly listening, always coming back. And then, finally, he sent me his own story. His words weren't perfect, but they were raw, painful. And as I read them, something inside me shifted. At first I felt shock, that uneasy recognition when another man's mistakes echo your own too closely. Then came sadness, heavy and suffocating, because I could feel the loneliness behind every word. And finally, gratitude. Gratitude that he trusted me enough to share it. Gratitude that maybe these late-night confessions are more than just regrets, they're a way to connect, man to man, across oceans and mistakes. That's why I pressed record tonight. And before I continue, I want to say thank you. To you, watching this right now, please drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I read every single one. And for those of you who keep showing up, video after video, this is my super thank you. You're the reason I can keep going. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and join the conversation below. Because tonight, I need to tell you everything. Let me take you back to where it all started. She smiled that smile, the one that made my chest tighten with something I hadn't felt since my 20s. You don't have to do this for me, Nigel. I love you without the house. I know, I whispered, squeezing her hand. That's exactly why I want to do it. The Thai official behind the desk spoke rapidly to Charia, pointing at various sections of the document spread before us. She translated in quick bursts. He wants to confirm you understand this transfers full ownership of the property to me. In Thailand, foreigners cannot own land directly, so— I know the law, I interrupted gently. We've discussed this. You hold it, but it's ours. Our home. She nodded, but something flickered across her face. Too fast for me to read. Our home, she repeated. The pen felt heavy in my fingers as I signed my name across the bottom of 3 separate documents. Nigel Harrison. Nigel Harrison. Nigel Harrison. Each signature felt like a promise, a commitment to the woman who'd made Thailand feel like home instead of exile. There, I said, setting the pen down. Done. Charia lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles softly. Thank you, she whispered. I know this wasn't easy for you, but it had been easy. That was the thing. After years of feeling like a guest in her country, this felt like belonging, like roots. I watched her gather the documents with careful hands, folding them into her leather portfolio, the same one she'd carried when I first met her at immigration 5 years ago. Should we celebrate? I asked as we walked out into the Bangkok heat. Of course, she said, slipping her arm through mine. But first, I need to stop by the bank. Some paperwork to file. I nodded, already thinking about dinner, about the bottle of wine I'd been saving, about how good it would feel to finally, properly, share everything with someone again. I was 55 years old, retired from 30 years in the civil service, and for the first time since my divorce back in Manchester, I felt like I was building something instead of just surviving it. I love you, I said as we waited for a taxi. I love you too, she replied, but she was looking at her phone. The first time I saw Charia, she was bent over a malfunctioning photocopier in the immigration office, muttering what I assumed were Thai curse words under her breath. I'd been in Thailand 3 months, burning through my savings while drowning in visa paperwork I couldn't understand. Excuse me, I said, approaching carefully. Do you speak English? She looked up, petite, maybe 35, wearing a simple white blouse and dark skirt, professional, tired. Yes, I speak English. You need help with forms? Desperately, I admitted. I'm trying to convert my tourist visa to a retirement visa, and I'm making a complete mess of it. She smiled for the first time. Most Farang do. The Thai bureaucracy. It's complicated. You want to hire a translator? I do this work. That's how it started. Just business. She charged me 2,000 baht to fill out the forms correctly, walked me through the process step by step, even helped me understand which bank account requirements I needed to meet. Professional, efficient, kind. How long you plan to stay in Thailand? She asked as we waited in the visa queue. Forever, hopefully, I said. I'm done with England, done with rain and taxes and feeling old before my time. She laughed. Thailand makes everyone feel young. Until the heat kills you. We exchanged line contacts. Just in case I needed help again, she said. Which I did, repeatedly. Every 3 months when my visa needed renewing, every time I wanted to open a bank account or rent an apartment or buy a motorbike. Charia became my translator, my guide, my bridge to a country that felt like freedom but spoke in riddles. You learn Thai very slowly. She teased me one evening after helping me negotiate a lease in Chiang Mai. I'd moved north after 6 months in Bangkok, craving mountains and cleaner air. I'm old, I protested. My brain doesn't absorb languages like it used to. You're not old, she said, looking at me in a way that made my pulse quicken. You're just experienced. That was the night she stayed for dinner. I cooked badly, and she laughed at my attempts to use chopsticks. We drank cheap wine and talked about her work, my pension, the differences between British and Thai humor. When she kissed me goodnight at the door, it felt like the first honest thing that had happened to me in months. See you next week? I asked. Maybe sooner, she said. She showed up 2 days later with groceries and cooked me proper Thai food. The heat nearly killed me, but I ate every bite and asked for seconds. You're brave, she said. Most Farang can't handle real spice. I'm learning, I said. Yes, she agreed, looking at me with those dark eyes. You are. Within a month, the professional help had blended into something personal. She'd stay over twice a week, then 3 times, then most nights. She had her own apartment in the city, she said, but mine was quieter, better for sleeping. I didn't question it. I was just grateful for the company, for someone who could navigate the world I'd chosen but didn't fully understand. Why did you leave England? She asked one night as we lay in bed, the fan spinning lazily overhead. Because I was disappearing there, I said. 30 years pushing papers in Manchester, watching the same people complain about the same problems every day. My ex-wife took half of everything, and I looked at what was left and thought, is this it? Is this all there is? And now, I'm here. With you. Building something new. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, building is good. But it takes time. Patience. I have both, I said. Good, she whispered, because I'm not going anywhere. That was the lie that felt most like truth. The money started small, so small I barely noticed it disappearing. A dinner here, a tank of petrol there. Let me get this, I'd say, and she'd smile and let me. It felt good to provide again. To be useful in a way that went beyond just needing help with forms. You don't have to pay for everything, Charia said one evening as I settled the bill at a restaurant in the night bazaar. I want to, I replied. You do so much for me. It's the least I can do. She squeezed my hand across the table. You're sweet. But then came the bigger things. Her motorbike broke down, expensive repairs. Her rent increased suddenly, landlord problems. Her mother got sick, hospital bills. Each time, she'd mention it casually, like she was just sharing news, not asking for help. But I could see the worry in her eyes, the way her shoulders tensed when she checked her phone. How much do you need? I asked after she told me about her mother's heart medication. No, Nigel. I can't ask you for money. We're together now, but nothing, I said. We're together. That means we help each other. The first time I transferred 15,000 baht to her account, she cried. Actually cried. You don't understand how much this means, she said. In Thailand, family is everything. If I can't help my mother, you don't have to explain, I told her. Family is important. I get that. What I didn't get was how often family emergencies could happen. Her brother needed money for university fees. Her aunt's shop flooded during monsoon season. Her cousin's wedding required a gift of cash that, by Thai standards, couldn't be small or it would bring shame to the family. I feel bad asking, she'd always say. You're not asking. I'd always reply. I'm offering. And I was. Each time felt like an investment in us. In our future, she'd curl up against me afterward, soft and grateful, telling me I was different from other Western men she'd known. Not selfish. Not cheap. A real partner. Other Farang. They come to Thailand thinking everything should be free, she said one night. They want Thai women to take care of them, but they don't want to take care of anyone else. That's not love, I said. That's just using people. Exactly. She kissed my chest. You understand love, real love. I did understand it, or thought I did. Love meant caring about someone else's problems. It meant being willing to sacrifice, to put their needs alongside your own. When she was stressed about money, I was stressed. When she was happy because a family crisis was resolved, I was happy too. The amounts grew gradually. 20,000 baht. 30,000. Once, when her father needed surgery, 50,000. I'd wire the money from my UK pension account, and she'd throw her arms around my neck like I'd saved her life. I'll pay you back, she'd always promise. Don't be silly, I'd always say. We're building a life together. But sometimes, late at night when she thought I was sleeping, I'd hear her on the phone speaking rapid Thai. Her voice would be different, sharper, more businesslike. When I'd ask about it in the morning, she'd say it was work calls. Legal translation jobs that came at odd hours because of time zones. Busy night? I'd ask. Always busy, she'd reply, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. I told myself it didn't matter. Everyone deserved privacy. Everyone had parts of their lives that didn't need sharing. I had my pension, my savings, my comfortable retirement. She had her work, her family, her responsibilities. The money I gave her was just love in action, investment in our shared future. The first time she went cold on me, really cold, not speaking for 2 days, was when I hesitated about her request for money to help her sister buy a small business. Not because I didn't have it, but because I'd just transferred a large sum the week before and was waiting for my pension payment to clear. If you can't help, just say so, she'd said, her voice flat. It's not that I can't help, I tried to explain. It's just the timing. She'd turned away from me in bed that night. The next morning she was gone before I woke up, leaving only a note saying she'd stay at her apartment for a few days. When she came back, I had the money ready. You don't have to. She started. I want to, I interrupted. I'm sorry I made you wait. She smiled then, and everything was warm again. But I remembered the cold, how quickly love could turn to ice when the wrong words were spoken. I should have remembered that feeling longer. We should get married, Charia said one morning over coffee, as casually as she might suggest we visit the market. We were sitting on the balcony of my apartment, looking out over Chiang Mai's old city walls. The morning was cool, almost pleasant before the heat would make thinking impossible. I nearly choked on my coffee. Married? Not married, she said quickly, reaching across to touch my arm. Legal married, for papers, for visa, for practical things. I set my cup down carefully. Practical things. Think about it, Nigel. Your retirement visa, every year you have to prove income, prove bank balance, prove you're not criminal. It's stressful for you. And for me, if we want to buy property together, get bank account together, make real life together, marriage makes everything easier. She was right, of course. The visa runs were exhausting. Every year, gathering documents proving I had enough money, proving I wasn't a burden on Thai society. And the property issue was real. Foreigners couldn't own land in Thailand. If I wanted a home, really wanted to belong somewhere, marriage would solve that problem. But marriage, I said, that's a big step. Only on paper, she said, moving her chair closer to mine. Nothing changes between us. We're already living like married people. This just makes it official, makes it safe. Safe? Safe for both of us. If something happens to you, I can take care of everything. If something happens to me, you're protected too. In Thai law, Unmarried couples have no rights. Families can take everything. The practical side of my brain, the civil servant who'd spent 30 years dealing with bureaucracy, understood immediately. Marriage would streamline everything. Visa security, property ownership, legal protection. It made sense. But the emotional side, the part that had been burned badly in my divorce, was screaming warnings. What if it changes things between us? I asked. She laughed, but not unkindly. Silly man. We've been together 2 years already. Every day together, every night together. How can a paper change that? My ex-wife and I said the same thing. I'm not your ex-wife. Her voice was gentle but firm. I don't want your money, Nigel. I don't want to control you. I just want us to be safe, legal, protected. That evening, she brought over a bottle of wine and cooked my favorite curry, the one that made my eyes water but somehow tasted like heaven. We talked about it properly. She explained the process. We'd go to the district office, sign the papers, register as married. Simple. Quick. No ceremony, no fuss. Just legal recognition of what already existed. We can have a real wedding later if you want, she said. Big party, invite your family from England. But the legal part, that should happen soon. For security. How soon? Next month? I can arrange everything. I know which office is fastest, which paperwork we need. Of course she did. Charia knew how to navigate every aspect of Thai bureaucracy. That's what I'd been paying her for since day one. Now she was offering to use that expertise for us. For our future. Okay, I said finally. Let's do it. She smiled and climbed into my lap, kissing me with unusual intensity. You won't regret this, she whispered against my neck. I promise. This makes everything better. 3 weeks later, we were married. The ceremony took 20 minutes in a government office that smelled like disinfectant and photocopier toner. Charia handled all the paperwork beforehand. I just showed up and signed where she pointed. 2 strangers served as witnesses. The official spoke no English. What did he just say? I asked as the man stamped our marriage certificate with dramatic flourish. He said, "Congratulations, you are now husband and wife," Charia translated. And he said Thai wives are very lucky because English men are gentlemen. I laughed. Is that true? We'll see, she said, but she was smiling. Afterward, we celebrated with lunch at an expensive hotel restaurant. I felt strange wearing my wedding ring, the first one I'd worn since my divorce 5 years earlier. But Charia seemed happier than I'd ever seen her. Relaxed, like some weight I didn't know she'd been carrying had finally lifted. So what changes now? I asked over dessert. Nothing changes, she said. Except everything is easier. You'll see. She was right about the easier part. My next visa renewal took half the time. The bank offered us a joint account without hesitation. When we looked at houses together, real estate agents actually took us seriously instead of giving me the confused looks I'd grown accustomed to. But something else had changed too, something I couldn't put my finger on. Charia was more confident, more direct. When she needed money for family emergencies, she didn't approach it with the same hesitation as before. Now it was simply, I need to transfer money to my mother. Can you add funds to our account? Our account. Our decisions. Our life. I told myself this was good. This was what partnership looked like. Equal input, equal responsibility. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I'd gained a wife or lost myself. My family needs help with the land, Charia said one evening, 6 months after our marriage. She was sitting cross-legged on the bed, laptop open, showing me photos on her phone. Rice fields, water buffalo, a small wooden house on stilts. The government is changing tax rules. We might lose everything. I looked at the photos. They could have been anywhere in rural Thailand. I didn't know your family had a farm. I don't talk about it much, she said. Too much worry. But now I'm scared we'll lose the land that's been in our family for generations. The story unfolded over several conversations. Her grandfather had owned the land but never properly registered it. Under new government regulations, all unregistered land had to be formally titled or it would revert to the state. The process required legal fees, surveying costs, and tax payments, approximately £30,000, she estimated. It's too much money, she said, her voice small. I've been trying to save, but with helping my mother and my work being slow. How much do you need? All of it. 30,000. But I can't ask you for that much. It's not fair. But she was asking, wasn't she? In that indirect way I'd learned to recognize. The way she'd mention problems without solutions, worries without requests, letting me draw the obvious conclusion and offer help before she had to actually ask. We're married now, I said. Your family is my family. No, Nigel, this is too much. Thai problems are not your responsibility. If we lose the land, what happens to your parents? They'll have to move to the city, live in some tiny apartment. My father is 70 years old. He doesn't know anything but farming. It will kill him. The next morning, I called my financial advisor in Manchester and arranged to transfer £30,000 from my pension fund to our Bangkok bank account. It was a significant chunk of my savings, but not devastating. And if it meant saving her family's heritage, preserving their livelihood, it felt like the right thing to do. Charia cried when I told her. Real tears, not the delicate ones I'd seen before. She wrapped her arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. I can't believe you would do this for people you've never met, she whispered. I'd like to meet them, I said. Maybe we could visit the farm once the legal issues are sorted out. She went still in my arms. Yes, she said after a moment. Yes, of course, once everything is settled. The money transferred on a Tuesday. Charia handled all the legal arrangements, working with lawyers in her home province. I didn't need to be involved, she said. Thailand law was complicated, and my presence might actually slow things down since foreigners weren't allowed to own agricultural land anyway. Trust me, she said. I know how these things work. I did trust her. Completely. Until I met Derek at a pub quiz night 3 weeks later. Derek was another English retiree, 15 years in Thailand, married to a Thai woman from Isan province. We got to talking about Thai culture, the challenges of integration, the peculiarities of local law. You ever deal with land inheritance issues? I asked casually. My wife's family is sorting out some property registration problems. Derek looked at me strangely. What kind of property? Rice farm. Been in the family for generations, but never properly titled. Governments making them register it or lose it. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then, mate, I don't know who's been telling you stories, but that's not how Thai land law works. Family land that's been farmed for generations doesn't just get seized by the government. And if it did, the solution wouldn't be paying taxes on it. It would be proving historical ownership through village records. My beer suddenly tasted wrong. Maybe it's a different situation. Maybe, Derek said. But I've been through the land registration process with my wife's family. Cost about 3,000 baht in fees, not 30,000 pounds. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Charia, listening to her breathe, trying to convince myself that Derek was wrong, that every family situation was different, that Thai bureaucracy was complex and expensive and unpredictable. Darling, I said softly, how are things going with the farm paperwork? Good, she murmured sleepily. Lawyers are handling everything. Should be finished soon. When do you think we can visit? I'd love to see the land, meet your parents properly. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen back asleep. Then, soon, when everything is settled. They're very traditional, you know. They want to make sure everything is perfect before meeting you. I don't need perfect. I just want to meet the people who raised the woman I love. Soon, she repeated, but her voice sounded different now. Awake, alert, go to sleep, Nigel. But I couldn't sleep. Instead, I lay there wondering why a simple question about visiting her parents had made my wife sound like she was lying to me, and why, for the first time since I'd known her, I believed she was. The first time I saw Charia's phone buzz with a text message at 3 a.m., she told me it was her cousin in America. Time zones, she explained, rolling over to check the screen before quickly silencing it. Everything okay? I asked. Just work stuff, she mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. But it happened again the next week, and the week after that. Always late at night, always answered quickly, always explained away as overseas clients or family emergencies or translation work that couldn't wait. I told myself this was normal. Charia worked in legal translation. Important documents didn't wait for convenient hours. Still, something felt different. She was different. More secretive with her phone, angling the screen away when she texted. Taking calls in the bathroom or stepping onto the balcony when she thought I was napping. When I asked about her day, her answers became vaguer. Busy, she'd say. Lots of clients. Any interesting cases? I'd ask, genuinely curious about her work. You know I can't discuss client business, she'd reply, which was true. Legal confidentiality was important. But she used to share general details before. The type of visa case, the complexity of document translation, amusing stories about confused foreigners. Now there was nothing. Just busy and confidential, and you wouldn't understand. The envelope appeared on a Tuesday morning while Charia was in the shower. I was looking for paracetamol in her handbag when I felt something thick and formal-sized. I should have left it alone, should have respected her privacy. But something about the weight of it, the official feel, made me pause. Inside were photocopies of documents in Thai script, several passport photos of a man I didn't recognize, and what looked like signed forms. Official stamps marked everything. Government letterhead. The man in the photos was Asian, maybe 40 years old, wearing a business suit and no smile. What are you doing? Charia's voice was sharp behind me. I turned, still holding the envelope. She was standing in the bathroom doorway, towel wrapped around her, hair dripping wet. But her face was furious. I was looking for paracetamol, I said. I found this. You're going through my personal things now? I wasn't going through anything. It was right there, and I just what? Decided you have the right to read my private documents? The anger in her voice was unlike anything I'd heard before. Not the gentle disappointment when I'd hesitated about money. Not the professional firmness when she was handling bureaucracy. This was raw fury. Charia, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to spy on you. Who is this man? That's none of your business. None of my business? I'm your husband. She laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. Husband, yes, you are my husband, on paper. That doesn't mean you own me. I never said I owned you. I just want to understand. Understand what? That I have work you don't know about? Clients you haven't met? A life that existed before you and continues without you? She grabbed the envelope from my hands and disappeared back into the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. I heard drawers opening and closing, the rustle of papers being moved. When she emerged 20 minutes later, fully dressed, the envelope was gone. I'm going out, she announced. Charia, please. Let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You invaded my privacy. You violated my trust. It was an accident. Was it? Really? Or have you been suspicious of me? Looking for reasons not to trust me? The question hit too close to home. Because I had been suspicious, hadn't I? The late-night calls, the expensive family emergencies, the farm story that Derek had questioned. But suspicion wasn't the same as searching through her belongings. Was it? Where are you going? I asked as she gathered her keys and handbag. To my apartment. To think about whether I want to be married to someone who spies on me. She was gone for 2 days. 2 days of silence, of unanswered calls, of wondering if I'd destroyed everything over my own paranoia. When she finally returned, she was different again. Softer. Sadder. I'm sorry, she said, curling up against me on the sofa. I overreacted. The documents you saw, they're for a complicated case, a divorce situation. The client is very private, very worried about confidentiality. When I saw you looking at his photo, I panicked. A divorce case? Ugly divorce. Rich Thai businessman. His wife is trying to take everything. He hired me to help with asset protection, moving money offshore before she can claim it. Very sensitive work. It made sense. Sort of. Legal translation work often involved sensitive situations, and I had invaded her privacy, even accidentally. I'm sorry too, I said. I should have just asked you about the headache tablets instead of looking through your bag. We both made mistakes, she said. But we can't do this again, Nigel. I need to be able to trust that you respect my work, my privacy, my professional obligations. Of course. I understand. She kissed me then, deeply, with an intensity that reminded me of our early days together. I love you, she whispered. But love doesn't mean we lose ourselves. You have your life, your interests, your privacy. I need mine too. You're right, I said. Absolutely right. But lying in bed that night, listening to her breathe, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed between us. Not just because of the envelope, but because of how easily she'd walked away, how quickly she'd been willing to leave, to punish me with silence and absence. And despite her explanation, despite her apology, I couldn't forget the look in her eyes when I'd asked who the man was. It wasn't professional concern for client confidentiality. It was panic. Pure, desperate panic, like someone who'd been caught in a lie they weren't ready to explain. The letter arrived on a Thursday morning while Charia was at her office, a co-working space she'd started renting after our fight about privacy. She said she needed a professional environment for client meetings. I thought it was a good idea. Some space, some independence. Healthy for both of us. The envelope was official, embossed with Thai government seals. My name was printed in both Thai and English, Mr. Nigel Harrison. Inside was a single sheet of paper, also bilingual, with stamps and signatures I didn't recognize. But I recognized enough Thai by then to understand one word: talak, divorce. I sat at the kitchen table, reading the same lines over and over, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. There were dates, case numbers, references to Thai civil code. My name appeared multiple times, so did Charia's, but I couldn't understand the context, couldn't piece together what was being communicated. When Charia came home that evening, I was still sitting at the same table, the letter spread in front of me. "What's that?" she asked, setting down her handbag. "I was hoping you could tell me." I held up the paper. It came today. Official mail from the Thai government. Something about divorce. Her face went pale. Actually pale. The color draining from her cheeks like I was watching it happen in real time. "Let me see," she said, her voice steady despite the color change. She took the paper, scanned it quickly, then set it down on the table. "It's a mistake." "A mistake?" "Administrative error. Sometimes when couples register marriage, the paperwork gets confused with divorce filings. Thai bureaucracy, you know how it is." But her hands were shaking slightly as she folded the letter. And she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Should we go to the office tomorrow?" I asked. "Get it sorted out?" "I'll handle it," she said quickly. "I know which department to call. You don't need to waste your time on bureaucratic mistakes." That night, she was distant. Polite but distant. When I reached for her in bed, she claimed she was tired. When I woke up at 2 a.m., she was gone. I found her on the balcony, smoking a cigarette. I didn't even know she smoked. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Just thinking about work," she said, not turning around. "Big case coming up." "The divorce case you mentioned? The rich businessman?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Something like that." The next morning, I decided to handle the bureaucracy myself. If there was an administrative error involving my marriage status, I wanted to understand it directly. I took the letter to the district office where we'd been married. The clerk who helped me spoke reasonable English. She looked at the letter, typed something into her computer, and frowned. "Sir, this is not mistake," she said. "This is notification of divorce completion." "Divorce completion?" "But I never filed for divorce. My wife never filed for divorce." The clerk typed more, her frown deepening. "According to records, divorce petition was filed 6 months ago. Hearing was held 3 weeks ago. Decree became final last Monday." The room started to spin slightly. "Filed by whom?" "Filed by Mrs. Charia Harrison. Grounds listed as..." She paused, reading from the screen. "Abandonment and failure to provide financial support." "That's impossible. We live together. I provide financial support constantly." She never told me about any divorce proceedings. Under Thai law, if respondent cannot be located after proper notice attempts, divorce can proceed in absentia. But I'm right here. I've been right here the whole time. The clerk looked uncomfortable. "Sir, maybe you should speak with lawyer. This is complex situation." I left the office in a daze. 6 months ago, while I was transferring money for her family's non-existent farm. 3 weeks ago, while I was apologizing for accidentally finding those documents in her handbag. Last Monday, while I was planning our weekend trip to the beach. All that time, I was being divorced by a woman who slept next to me every night. When I got home, Charia was packing a suitcase. "Going somewhere?" I asked. "Business trip," she said without looking up. "Few days in Bangkok. Client meetings." "What about the letter? Did you call about the administrative error?" She zipped the suitcase closed and finally looked at me. Her eyes were completely flat. No warmth, no guilt, no emotion at all. "There was no error, Nigel." "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. There was no error." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You divorced me. Without telling me. Yes. Why? Because I needed to. For what? For your client? The businessman with the asset protection case? She laughed, but it was the coldest sound I'd ever heard. There is no client. There never was a client. Then who? The man in the photographs. The one you found in my bag. His name is Somchai. He's not my client, Nigel. He's my husband. Your husband? But I'm your husband. No, she said, picking up her suitcase. You were my sponsor, my way to get what I needed. But Somchai and I have been together for 7 years. We were married before I ever met you. The floor felt unsteady beneath my feet. 7 years? 7 years. He works in Singapore. Comes back every few months. The late-night calls, the business trips, the family emergencies that needed money. Most of that was for us. For our real life together. The farm. There is no farm. There never was a farm. That money went toward buying a condo in Bangkok. In both our names, Somchai's and mine. I sat down heavily in the chair by the door. So everything was a lie? Not everything, she said, and for a moment her voice softened slightly. I did care about you, Nigel. You're a good man, kind, generous. But I was never in love with you. I was working, building a future. Somchai and I, we knew from the beginning that marrying a foreigner would open doors. Property ownership, bank accounts, visa security for him. When he wanted to come back to Thailand permanently, you made all of that possible. And the divorce, why now? Because Somchai got a promotion. He's moving back to Thailand next month. We don't need the foreign marriage anymore. In fact, it was starting to become a problem. So I ended it. She moved toward the door, then paused. The house you signed over to me? It's already been sold. The money is gone. The joint bank account was emptied yesterday. Your name has been removed from everything. You can't do that. It's theft. It's not theft, it's divorce settlement. Under Thai law, assets acquired during marriage belong to the wife if the husband abandons his responsibilities, which, according to the court records, you did. But I never abandoned anything. I never even knew about the divorce. You signed documents you didn't read. You gave me power of attorney for property transactions. You trusted me to handle legal matters you didn't understand. Everything I did was technically legal. She opened the door, then turned back one last time. I'm sorry, Nigel. I really am. But you made this easy. Too easy. A man your age, with your money, choosing to live in a country where you don't speak the language, don't understand the law, don't have any real friends or family. You were always going to be someone's mark. I just made sure it was mine. Charia. My real name is Prani, she said. Charia was just easier for you to pronounce. And then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I was alone in an apartment that was no longer mine, in a country that had never really welcomed me, with a marriage that had never really existed. I sat in that chair for 3 hours, watching the shadows move across the floor as the sun set, trying to understand how 5 years of my life had been reduced to a business transaction, how love could be performed so convincingly by someone who felt nothing at all. The worst part wasn't the money, though that was devastating. The worst part wasn't even the lies, though those cut deep. The worst part was realizing that every moment I'd treasured, every quiet breakfast, every shared laugh, every night falling asleep beside her, had been work for her, professional obligation. She'd been paid to make me feel loved, and she'd done her job exceptionally well. When I finally stood up, my legs were stiff, and my back ached. I was 55 years old, divorced without knowing it, robbed by someone I'd trusted completely, and more alone than I'd ever been in my life. But I was still alive, still breathing, still capable of starting over, even if I had no idea how. I saw them together 3 weeks later at a restaurant in the Nimmenhamen district of Chiang Mai. I'd been walking aimlessly, trying to fill the empty hours that used to belong to our relationship, when I spotted her through the window of an upscale Thai place I could never have afforded when we were together. She was laughing. Actually laughing, head thrown back, eyes bright with genuine joy, the kind of laughter I'd worked so hard to earn during our 5 years together. Across from her sat the man from the photographs, Somchai. He was better looking in person. Younger than me, obviously successful, wearing a tailored shirt that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a month. I should have walked away. Should have kept going down the street and pretended I'd never seen them. But I couldn't move. I stood on the sidewalk, watching through the glass like some pathetic stalker, seeing the woman I'd loved be genuinely happy with someone else. They were sharing a bottle of wine that looked expensive. Their hands were intertwined across the table. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Red silk, probably designer, definitely not something she'd owned when she was living off my pension transfers. Her hair was different too, styled professionally. She looked like money now, like success, like someone who'd never needed to work as a translator for confused foreigners. Somchai said something that made her laugh again, and she leaned forward to kiss him quickly across the table. It was casual, comfortable, the kind of kiss that comes from years of real intimacy, not the performed affection I'd received. This was what actual love looked like. I watched him pay the check with a black credit card. Watched them stand and walk toward the exit, his hand on the small of her back. Watched them wait for a BMW to collect them, not a taxi, not a motorbike, but a private car with a driver. They passed within 10 feet of me on the sidewalk, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something new, something expensive, close enough that I could have called out her name, either of her names. But I didn't. I just stood there, invisible, while my former wife and her real husband climbed into their car and drove away to their real life, the life they'd built with my money. That night, I sat in my tiny rented room, the place I'd moved to after losing the house, and tried to understand what I'd witnessed. Not just the fact that they were together, which I'd already known intellectually, but the reality of their happiness, the obvious comfort between them, the way they looked like they belonged together. For 5 years, I'd believed I was building something real with Charia, but watching her with Somchai, I realized I'd never seen her genuinely happy with me. Grateful, yes, affectionate, when it served her purposes, but never joyful, never completely relaxed and unguarded. I'd been trying to win the love of someone who was already in love with someone else, someone who was just waiting for the right moment to walk away. The most painful part was recognizing that she was probably better off now, not just financially, though that was obvious, but emotionally. She was with the person she actually wanted to be with. She was free from the exhausting performance of caring about me. She was living her authentic life instead of the character she'd created for my benefit. I poured myself a glass of cheap whiskey and raised it in a silent toast to the window, to Charia, to Prani, to whatever her real name was. I hoped she was happy. I hoped Somchai appreciated what he had. I hoped they built something beautiful together with the foundation they'd stolen from me. Because, despite everything, despite the lies, the theft, the complete destruction of my trust, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. I was too tired for hate, too old to carry that kind of anger. Instead, I felt something closer to relief. The uncertainty was over. The questions were answered. The woman I'd loved had never existed, but at least now I knew that for certain. I finished my whiskey and went to bed early. Tomorrow I would start figuring out how to build a life that was actually mine, a life based on truth instead of performance, a life where I was loved for who I was, not for what I could provide. If such a thing was even possible at 55. I'm writing this from a small room in Chiang Rai, 6 months after everything fell apart. It's not much, a bed, a desk, a window that looks out onto a street market, but it's mine, really mine. The rent comes from what's left of my pension, and every month I pay it myself with money I earned myself. There's something to be said for that kind of honesty. People expect me to be angry. The few expats I've told the story to, they get furious on my behalf. You should report her, they say. Get a lawyer. Fight back. Make her pay. Derek especially thinks I'm being weak. She stole your life, mate. You can't just let that slide. But they don't understand. You can't steal something that was never real to begin with. Charia, Prani, whatever her name is, she didn't steal my love. She performed a service in exchange for payment. I just didn't realize I was a customer instead of a partner. The anger comes and goes in waves. Some days I wake up furious, ready to march into lawyer offices and police stations demanding justice. Other days I feel sorry for myself, wallowing in the loneliness and the financial worry. But most days, I just feel tired, not devastated, tired, just done. I understand now that she wasn't particularly evil. She was just practical. She saw an opportunity and she took it. A lonely foreign man with money and no local connections. Someone who needed help navigating a complicated system. someone grateful enough to pay well for that help. From her perspective, I probably looked like the perfect solution to her problems, and I was. For 5 years, I provided exactly what she needed: financial security, legal status, social respectability. In return, she provided what I needed: companionship, translation services, the illusion of belonging somewhere. It was a business transaction disguised as love, but the services rendered were real enough. The part that bothers me most isn't what she did, it's what I did. How eagerly I handed over not just my money but my judgment. How desperately I wanted to believe that someone could love me enough to make all the bureaucracy and isolation worthwhile. How willingly I ignored every warning sign because the alternative was admitting I was alone again. I made myself easy to manipulate because being manipulated felt better than being honest about my situation. I wasn't just Charia's victim, I was my own victim too. These days I live simply. I teach English conversation to university students, cash payments, no contracts, no complications. I eat at local places where the food costs 30 baht and no one speaks English. I ride a second-hand motorbike that breaks down regularly but gets me where I need to go. I read books from the public library and write in journals that no one will ever see. It's not the retirement I planned, it's smaller, cheaper, lonelier than what I thought I wanted. But it's honest. No one is performing love for money. No one is pretending to be something they're not. Including me. Sometimes I wonder if Charia ever thinks about me. If she feels guilty about the deception, or if she's simply moved on to building her real life with her real husband. I hope she doesn't feel guilty. Guilt would be a waste of her energy, and she's probably got better things to do with her time. I hope Somchai knows how lucky he is. Not because she's perfect. Obviously she's capable of long-term deception when it serves her purposes. But because she chose him. Really chose him. Not for his money or his visa status or his usefulness, but because she wanted to share her actual life with him. That's worth something. That's worth a lot. I'm learning to cook Thai food properly. Not the tourist versions I used to make, but real dishes with proper ingredients and techniques. It's harder than I thought it would be. The balance of sweet, sour, salty, and spicy is delicate. Too much of any one element ruins the whole dish. Kind of like relationships, I suppose. The old me would have seen that as a profound metaphor, evidence that I was gaining wisdom from my suffering. The new me recognizes it as exactly what it is: a middle-aged man learning to cook because he doesn't want to eat instant noodles for the rest of his life. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the small, practical victories are all you need to keep moving forward. One day, then another, then another. Building something real, even if it's smaller than what you thought you wanted. I still don't hate her. I probably never will. Hate requires energy I don't have and certainty I can't claim. Maybe she genuinely cared about me within the limits of her situation. Maybe she told herself she was helping me as much as she was helping herself. Maybe she feels bad about how it ended. Or maybe she doesn't think about me at all anymore. Maybe I was just a chapter in her story, not the whole book. Maybe that's for the best. I'm 56 now. Starting over in a country that will never be home but doesn't feel foreign anymore either. Learning to live with less money, less comfort, less certainty about the future. Learning to trust myself instead of trusting my need to be needed. It's not the life I planned. But it's the life I have. And for the first time in years, it's completely, honestly mine. That has to count for something.